Well, hello, and welcome to the Plos Bros podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sam Govin, and here with me is just a simple man trying to make his way through the galaxy, my co-host, Matt. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Sam. How are you?
It's been a great day, buddy. It's been a great day.
And we're just getting started. This is the earliest I've been up in probably 3 months. I finally got my sleep schedule back on track after staying up for over probably 30 something hours. So here we are. I finally woke up at 9 o'clock to watch The Mandalorian. I'm proud of myself.
I'm glad to have you back in the normal sphere of the world.
Yeah, going to bed at 7 or 8 in the morning is not always the best for the brain. Start the day off right with my bowl of cereal and Mandalorian. Wow, what an episode. What an episode. And do we have any real news this week?
I got the AT-AT this week.
That's news. That's news to us.
Yeah, I got the AT-AT. There were some awesome Funko Pop sales this week. I got picked up the Gamorrean Fighter and Bo-Katan, so nice. They're on their way. But other than that, I don't have a lot of news to talk about.
All good. All good. So normally we have a news segment for our show, but today we're just going to be talking about Mandalorian, it seems like. Unless there's anything else you want to discuss on your mind, Sam. Anything else in the brain?
No, I think there's stuff we can hold back till next week. Like the Lord of the Rings show announced their cast, stuff like that. Stick around for next week. This week's a big episode and we don't have a whole lot of time, so we'll talk about that next week.
Subscribe for more, folks. There's a new show every week if you like our discussion, and we're going to break it all down for you right here, right now.
I'm going to write that down for next week. So I know for next week's show on my notes.
Sam keeps a live notes feed for the show.
Exactly. Yeah. And all the people in the live chat right now, you can make fun of me for it. It's okay. Are you ready to talk about this episode, bud?
Already. Overall, I thought it was very action-packed. I was screaming at my TV the whole time. Thank God my mom's at work today. So I had the house to myself. It was just me and Mandalorian. I was screaming at the TV. A lot of returns from Boba Fett to Fennec Shan to the Empire storming back into Mando's life in a real way. We got Dark Troopers. These are big things that Tython... I sat there for a second to myself, just quietly thinking, pondering, wow, I never thought we would get a Star Wars story on Tython with Dark Troopers and Boba Fett with the Slave One in this series, especially.
Boba Fett fighting with a gaffy stick, not even like in the armor. I never knew I needed to see that in my life, but here we are. Yes. I mean, wow, what an episode.
I agree completely. And that sense too, like that adds just an extra layer to it. It's mind-boggling. You really do sit there and think, wow, for a second. This is real Star Wars. It really gets me excited to discuss this with you and to just have upcoming episodes as well. And I said this last week, I haven't felt this way in a long time, it felt like, since probably Clone Wars. The sequels, they just weren't that for me personally, at least. And everybody is different and they're all entitled to their own opinion, right? But for me personally, like, this is what gets me excited. I could be watching this in a theater.
Well, and the thing is, I like the sequel trilogy for what it is, but at the same time, like you're right, this is my kind of Star Wars. I love this. I love the Clone Wars. And these ongoing series in which you're invested in the characters over a long period of time, I think it's way more interesting for me. It's just amazing. I'm still a little blown back. I've seen the episode twice already. Wow. And I heard someone say this is like a comic book, like come to life, really.
That's what and
in my mind, I can picture just like Boba Fett kicking ass and the Razor Crest blowing up, stuff like that, like in the frame. It's just, wow.
That is a great way to put it. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Especially from reading the newer Star Wars comics, it's just kind of off kilter for us. It's created in a way that we still accept, which I love. And you forget that, like you said, Boba Fett is fighting with a gaffy stick from the Tusken Raiders. It's just so different, but it's really well done. And the execution is on point. I think we have to understand that as well. Like for these crazy things to happen, we have to accept it. We can't just be sitting there and saying, this doesn't make sense. If I told you in the past months, if we were doing the Mando hype show and I gave this episode to you, if I pitched it, you'd be looking at me like I was insane, right? The Razor Crest gets destroyed completely? What?
Yeah, just the views and like So this episode was directed by Robert Rodriguez, who was supposed to have the Boba Fett movie.
I remember Josh Trank directed. Well, he was going to direct it, and then there was some weird stuff that happened.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of hype with Rodriguez because he makes such gritty movies. And then when he was announced to be directing episode this season, they're like, well, I wonder if it's going to be the Boba Fett episode or even his point of view in a Mando episode. They were like, we'd love to see it.
Yeah.
So seeing him direct Boba Fett and the angles that he was able to capture, like my girlfriend was watching this with me. She was like, who directed this episode? It just feels so different. Like those fight scenes. The moment that I realized it was someone different was when they're flying into Tython and there's Grogu's view in front of the Mando's knee, like out the window. I was like, we've never seen that view before. And then just the way that he like rockets in, the camera work in this episode was just amazing.
Yeah, I would agree. And that was something that I picked up on slowly. Like I said, I was watching this in the morning. I am not a morning person, folks. It's not me. But you're right. You're right. And the whole time I felt like it was a little off, not off in a bad way, but it felt different. And I really do enjoy that. I love seeing all these different directors and their take on it. Just like who directed Chapter 4? Bryce Dallas Howard. Dallas Howard.
Yeah.
Or
no, Carl Weathers did Chapter 12. Rick Famuyiwa hasn't done episode yet this season, but
I thought he did.
Last week was Dave Filoni. The week before that was Carl Weathers. Then Bryce Dallas Howard. Week 1 was Jon Favreau, and I'm trying to think who did week 2.
I think it was Rick Famuyiwa. I could be wrong.
It might have been. I'm not sure. Like,
we'll check. Yeah. I'll let you guys know
right now.
Yeah. The shots that were taken. Wow. I was screaming in my seat the whole time, cheering, crying, laughing. It had it all. It had all those great moments.
Yeah.
A very short period of time as well.
33 minutes. When I saw that this morning, I was like, oh man, 33 minutes. Really? We're going to do another episode like that? I just watched episodes 1 through 3 of this season yesterday. So like through the Bo-Katan stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, I really love that Tatooine episode. I mean, the Spider episode's starting to grow on me more. And the Bo-Katan episode is just so good. And I was like, man, I just love to have an episode like those ones. And then this week just delivers so much.
Yeah, so and we have a lot coming down the pike. And we can discuss our theories and thoughts after we discuss what happened in this episode. But what did you think about them going to Tython right away? For me, I wasn't prepared for that at all. I told you last week, I thought we wouldn't even be there till like maybe even season 3 or something. But right away. But it's no wonder that he couldn't make it past the Empire. I mean, they were tracking him anyways. They probably just slowly followed him as he was going there because it's in the deep core, like I told you. I'm surprised that he made it past the Resistance as well, or the New Republic, as it's referred to.
Yeah, and I think that was just a technicality. I think the way the story was driven, they were like, okay, we're at this point in the season. We really need to pick up the pace.
That's fair.
We've been dragging our feet with a few episodes this season and just, some character work. But I think they were like, let's just jump right into it. And I'm so happy. I mean, I really did appreciate the control knob little scene at the very beginning with him learning Grogu's name and like passing the object back and forth. And as we keep reiterating, it was such a parent moment between Mando and Grogu.
He felt like a proud father. His little cheer, even though he like used a Star Wars swear word, and Grogu's like, did I mess up?
Because he's not used to him giving positive reinforcement.
Exactly. A child doesn't understand that. I mean, an adult like us would. And for a child, they don't necessarily understand how normal people speak yet, or the nuances of our world.
And that control knob means more and more. I really want to get that Funko Pop with the control knob now.
It's a Force artifact. That merch. It's a Force artifact now. It's Kylo Ren's going to pick it up and he's going to be able to see into Baby Yoda.
That's how they're going to find him, with Quinlan Voss when he picks up the object, because he has the sightseeing.
So we got Tython. We got them jetting in, which was a funny moment. You got a laugh out of me.
With the windows down.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering, like, where did the Razor Crest go then? Does it just, like, fly off on its own and then land? I didn't know that it could do that.
No, I think he meant he landed and then they flew with the jetpack.
That makes more sense now. I pictured him just jumping outside of the ship, like parachuting in.
Out the back, yeah.
And then the plane just lands. I guess that makes more sense. I was shocked to see that it was called The Tragedy. I was like, oh, here we go. Like, something bad's gonna happen. I immediately was on the edge of my seat the whole time watching. So even them landing into the temple, I was like, are they gonna get ambushed? And that was kind of my vision that I saw it through, the lens that I watched this episode with. It was really something that kept me on the edge of my chair and waiting for something bad to happen.
And knowing that the Razor Crest has the tracker on it from 2 episodes ago in the Siege, when we knew that Mimbanese worker put the tracking device on, I was like, well, it's just a matter of time. And I saw the tragedy. I was like, oh, so this means it's going to be the Empire episode. And then when you hear the Slave One fly in, and then you see it, and I was like, oh, is this the track? Why? Like,
is he working with the Empire? For a second, I was confused, and then I thought, yes, Boba Fett is an ultimate bounty hunter and a tracker himself as well. I was trying to piece things through together in my brain for that. But going back to the temple, the top of the mountain, to me, in all honesty, that's kind of my one critique of this episode. We're on Tython, right? And this is, an ancient world of the Jedi. It didn't feel as Jedi-like to me, and by that I mean I understand that this was the first Jedi temple, right? And the Jedi since evolved into having statues of themselves and that sort of thing, which is more of a proud kind of way to showcase your presence, especially for a Jedi. And Jedi are more of the peacekeepers of the galaxy, and they shouldn't be as arrogant as they were, and that is what leads to their fall. But I was kind of taken aback, and I wasn't expecting that it would be so, I guess, mundane.
In my mind, it was kind of like Octo. It's been generations since there was a presence of Jedi on Tython. If there was no inscriptions on the rock, I would feel kind of the same way. But there were still inscriptions, and like those rock structures were still in that general shape. I can see where you're coming from with that, but I think in the long run, it's just an ancient place. For example, if you tried finding biblical places or things like that, like it's really tough to try to find things like that are from thousands of years ago. So that's kind of the way I see it.
That's a great way to look at it. I really like that. It's not like you're going to see these grand churches or crosses from years ago. You're totally right. Right on the money, Sam. That's why we keep you around.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah, I was taken aback by Slave One entering the frame and hearing the sound. You know what that sound of the ship is. Wow. And to have Boba Fett confront him at first and take down the hood, such a great sequence.
Hearing his voice before you really saw him too. Sorry for all you folks that thought that was Commander Bly, by the way. I mean, or Captain Rex.
I hope that no one actually thought that. I just can't imagine being that kind of a fan.
It's Commander Bly flying the Slave One.
No offense to anybody out there. I'm not judging you, but as someone who's a deep Star Wars fan like us, it's hard to take us out of that mindset. It's very, very difficult for me to imagine someone thinking that is actually Captain Rex.
So I had heard rumors this past week. They had built Slave One's cockpit for this season. We still have 3 episodes left. I was like, we're not going to see it this week. Because they're using it for the new Boba show. So they built the cockpit for this show and for that show. And it didn't feel like a spoiler for me. Kind of like I knew last season that they had built Yoda models. And I just thought, oh, well, this show will go to a Yoda planet. Not that a baby Yoda will be the main lead of the show. So I think it was in that same kind of vein. And wow, just to see it and made me so much happier to know that I'm getting it for Christmas, that I'm getting the
You beat me out there. Like, I still have an old Slave One in Lego. It's a great set, but the newer one is far superior. And I still don't have a Boba Fett figure. I would love to have a Boba Fett figure, truly. But this show keeps surprising us. Always. Every single episode, it feels like it's a surprise to me. And I loved that he actually mattered in this season because he's introduced in the very first chapter of the season, chapter 9. And it really makes me happy that it matters for this new arc. I never thought it would happen. I told you, I don't think we're ever going to see Boba Fett again. Last week, I said that. It's crazy to me. It blows my mind. And I'm still trying to, in my mind, like, break it down and accept it. Because, like I said, I just watched the episode just now. I still had that hype, and I'm trying to just work through it. This is my Star Wars therapy. I hope this is your Star Wars therapy too, everyone that's watching.
Did you skip the recap?
Yes, because you told me to. You texted me that, and
Yeah.
I'm very, very glad that I did. Although the first thing that they show is the footsteps, right? And that I like. Oh, I gotta, I gotta skip the recap. I gotta skip it. Wait a second. Where are we going in this episode and what's happening?
I saw it when I watched it the second time. I still didn't watch the recap, but I saw the opening of it, and I was like, man, I gotta text Matt just so he knows not to watch, even though, because like those footsteps, it's a huge spoiler, but I understand for those fans. When I watch it again later, I'll have to see what the recap actually involved. I assume it had Boba on the sunset.
I would assume,
Yeah.
like I said, neither of us watched the recap. We'll do it later, but yeah, you just gotta do it. You just gotta skip the recap if you're gonna have
Every
these
week, yeah.
surprises that you want to have. Frankly, it's almost like knowing what's in the Christmas present when you shake the box before you unwrap it, and then you have to pretend to be surprised. Oh, a new Lego set. How did I ever know?
Yeah. With the recap, they showed Fennec on the ground, and we had predicted that Fennec was going to come back. And I'm really glad that she is back, because I really, really like Ming-Na Wen. I think she's a great actor, and she's able to do so many stunts. Like,
well, she was great in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. too. I loved her in that show. And for what it's worth, I mean, I never even finished that series, which is something I need to get back on. Although it got good. It got good. Eventually. It took a while with Ghost Rider and all of that. There were some surprises. She's a great actress. And this, to me, she feels a little different. I don't know. I think it's the lines. I think it's her delivery of the lines. She's much more of a stunt actress than she is a character. I feel like even in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., her character played to those advantages because she was a little internal. She didn't really have a lot of lines. She was more of a quiet character.
She is the original Mulan, so we know she can do voice work, but that was in the 90s, so maybe she's focused more on her stunt work now. But either way, I really,
I would hope. I would hope.
Every moment I loved. There was some lighting this episode and some stuff that made me feel like it was an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Some moments in the rocks there and stuff that felt a little like TV, kind of like not exactly
the Stormtroopers.
like,
the Stormtroopers felt that way to me at first. It felt almost like a fan film. But don't get me wrong, this at all wasn't fan service in a good way.
No, yeah.
And that delights me. Like, it's all in the delivery. If I pitched this episode to someone, it would sound like fan service because it is something that's very exciting to fans. But it's not done in a way where it takes you out of the experience and it doesn't feel like Star Wars. It doesn't feel realistic at all. It's just really cool.
How'd you feel about them explaining how Fennec came back, though? Like her cyborg stomach. Have you seen the show Westworld?
No.
Okay. In that show, this is just the part, opening shots this episode. Anyway, it's like a theme park with these realistic robots, and they have cyborg stomachs in their scenes where they like, stab into them, and they like have like the all the wiring and stuff in the stomach. So I was like, oh man, maybe she's from Westworld, not like, but like that's what it felt like. It felt like she like opened it up. She opened up her like her central processing unit. She's just a robot with like a Terminator,
Yeah, and she's a cyborg now. You die in Star Wars, you come back as a cyborg with robot legs. Like
General Veers.
Please no.
Every week, General Veers is gonna come back.
Maybe you should reach out to Veers Watch and you two can become best friends now. I thought it was different. It's Star Wars, so I accept it, but I don't know. It was a little off to me. That's just my take. I still accept it. I'm glad that she's there for the show. We need another character like her. At first, it was like, is his sniper Aura Singh? Grandma Aura.
Yeah. And I was like, who else is a sniper that we know? I was like, Aura Singh, but Tobias Beckett pushed her. I mean,
yeah. I mean, hey, she died. Aura Singh can still come back. Boba's best friends with her, apparently. I should have known, like, being that he already, like, that was the opening shot of the episode. I even forget, even if I do watch the recap.
Did you notice the Mortar Trooper? It's a different design. It's like the Incinerator Trooper, but with yellow. So that came up in this episode. So that was pretty neat.
Yeah, and I didn't pair it with the Incinerator Trooper like you just explained, but good point. I liked that we're seeing variants in the Empire, just like that we got in the Clone Wars, to help us kind of understand the nuances of it. I really do like the Shore Troopers in Rogue One and the Death Troopers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It really does expand your view of the Empire, just like droids. Honestly, with droids and commanders and pilots and all that, I only learned that all through the Lego figures.
Oh yeah.
But we don't need a visual dictionary to understand that. We can see in the episode, we have a Mortar Trooper, we have an Incinerator Trooper. I like that. I like that.
That was a design that came out with those standees before the season even started. So
really,
I knew at some point we would see it, but I wasn't sure when. And
that was before our podcast, so it's hard to remember for me.
Yeah, when the Mithril and Cara Dune and Grief Karga, and all those standees. But by the way, did you know you can get an Ahsoka standee and a Bo-Katan standee now? Yeah.
What?
And Cobb Vanth, all these characters, you can get standees of them.
What if that just becomes my whole background?
We just start stuffing every week as a different standee. If I couldn't find the Mithril pop, I was buying you the Mithril standee for your birthday. And a life-size standee of the Mithril for in your room. And I was like, it's going to be great. Your mom's going to hate me.
I don't need that. I really... It's just too much. It's just too much. We could get like 3 Mithrils. 3 of the exact same Mithril standee. And we could have just all Mithril back here at some point.
Yeah, well, it's like that guy in our hometown who has the Donald Trump standee, a cardboard cutout of Donald Trump in his front yard. It's like you just put a cardboard cutout of the Mithril in your front yard.
Doesn't that get damaged? It's literally snowing outside. How does that work? Unless it's laminated, or do you just laminate your standee?
No, it's falling apart. Well, last time I drove past his house, it was like Donald Trump's hand and head were like zip tied to the post, and then like his body was disintegrated. So
that's rough. Poor Donald. Anywho, we skipped a key point. How do you feel about Boba Fett coming back and having all Jango Fett's lines?
Oh, I laughed. I thought it was so funny just because I told you this. I had an interaction with someone on Instagram a few weeks ago. They asked me for something, and I was like, I'm just a simple man trying to make my way on social media. And so to have him come back and say that line again, I was like, A+.
I didn't feel like it was fan service. I thought it was really cool. And to have him want his armor back was cool. I didn't expect that. I thought, honestly, he would kind of want to give up the armor, being that technology was the reason he ended up in the Sarlacc pit. It's the reason that his father, Jango, died. It was these malfunctioning jetpacks and technology that lead to their fates. But I still really liked that he had tracked Mando all this time to where he is at this point. And it's very convenient that he just catches up to him in order to pretty much save his butt. I really like having the character back in a real way.
And to know it was Jango's armor.
Yeah, and that too. But here's
in Legends, it wasn't. He had scrounged his own armor up. It wasn't Jango's armor in Legends. Are you going to say Jango's helmet in the Clone Wars?
Yeah. I don't understand this. Okay, Dave should know. That's all I'm going to say with it.
He said it was the armor, so it could have been everything else. He could have everything else,
He didn't say helmet. You're right. That's fair. Okay. Technicality. But
it'll be in a comic someday.
It felt a little Kylo Ren putting back his helmet together in Rise of Skywalker, except there's no welding marks. There's no primate to assemble the Boba Fett helmet.
By the way, I don't know if we've talked about it on the show now. You and I talked about it. I thought I heard they got a real chimpanzee for that scene in the Rise of Skywalker. So I was convinced, and then I saw the visual dictionary. I was like, oh, that's totally a...
We've been training this chimp for weeks
to run, to be able to weld.
With a mask on, to not even blindly see. Crazy stuff.
Welcome to our podcast.
Crazy stuff.
How did you feel Boba looked in the armor though? I thought he looked really cool with like the robe, like the black robes hanging down underneath and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really, really different and a really cool look.
Well, I agree. And seeing Cobb Vanth wear that armor the first time really was visually amazing to me because of how detailed it is. And there are so many markings on Boba Fett's armor that you never get to really see because in Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back, filmed in the 70s and 80s, it's hard to capture that without digital quality to the film. But now it's just so beautiful, right? Mm-hmm. And to see all the weathering on it from the Sarlacc pit, I'm blown away that it's back. It's hard for me to find the words because it's just a miracle to me.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same way. I still have a hard time believing in the Marshall that we had it, let alone in this episode, and that we're going to see it now, at least for next week into the future. Like
what an
crazy.
entrance, and what an entrance that Boba had with that armor back, just kicking butt.
Oh, and he does that like sidelong look at the Razor Crest, like, you're like, oh man, he's going to get the armor, and good thing he went and got that armor when he did.
That did feel a little convenient to me. If I'm being completely honest, to have the Razor Crest completely destroyed, only like ashes left over, and then Boba Fett's wearing his armor there. Like, I guess it's a good thing I went back and got my armor first.
It is made of Beskar, so it would have survived, but
fair.
It wouldn't have had the cool paint job anymore. They would have looked exactly the same, except for one had a rangefinder and one didn't. And
I think that rangefinder would have gotten blown off.
I love that when he uses his missile and blows up the one, he's like, I was aiming for the other one. I didn't catch that the first viewing, but the second viewing, it got a chuckle out of me. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, honestly, if I'm giving you my complete opinion, it felt a little forced of a line, but I don't mind it.
I am wondering is why he hadn't gotten his armor back already. You know, like if he knew Cobb Vanth had it, like he even knew Cobb Vanth by name.
Yeah.
So why didn't he get his armor back? That's something that I wondered, and I've heard other people talk about it in the community. So, but I have a feeling we'll get to know because the Boba series is supposed to take place between episode 6 and Mandalorian.
Is that confirmed? So, wait, stop. We're getting a Boba Fett series now? Who says?
It's filming right now.
Who says?
It's under complete wraps. It's getting filmed. That's why they built the Slave One cockpit I was talking about earlier. It's a completely secret series. They've been planning underneath everything, and they haven't announced.
Who's reporting this? Where is this coming from?
Many reputable sources. The same people who reported Bo-Katan and Ahsoka, like all this stuff earlier in the year, like that broke that stuff, like Hollywood Reporter and Screen Rant, things like that. That are
They're not shooting Cassian.
They're shooting Cassian here in January. They are filming the Boba Fett series before they film Mando season 3.
So to get this completely straight, they filmed Obi-Wan.
That will be filming in July.
So they're filming a series they haven't even announced before all the series that they did announce.
Because it's a surprise.
Surprise! Wow, that is a surprise. It's like bonus content, it feels like. So more stuff for us to review and talk about on this podcast. So definitely subscribe for more, people. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, and I think it'll be something that will come out after the Bad Batch. I'm thinking in that range of like across the summer when we're looking for more Star Wars content. On this
you think that's going to come out this summer?
I think they're shooting it in the volume. So I think it's going to come out pretty lickety split. I think it'll come out before Mando season 3. So the schedule I'm thinking is, so we're going to get Mando until Christmas. And then Christmas Day, we will get the Gallery will begin its 8-week run. And then we'll get 8 episodes of the Gallery again. And then WandaVision starts in January. And we will get the run of WandaVision. And that will pretty much take us to the beginning of Bad Batch. And then Bad Batch will take us the whole way through the spring. And then we might have a few weeks break. Or a Marvel show could come out between then. And then I'm thinking Boba Fett will be after that before Mando season 3 starts.
I'm just processing. I'm really just... Wow.
A lot of content. Gives us our weekly thing to talk about on the podcast.
Well, yeah. No, and it makes it fun. I'm excited. I'm really excited, but it's a great time to be a Star Wars fan for sure. Holy cow.
Oh, and for sure.
I didn't realize it. It's just crazy to me that Boba Fett's back to begin with. Like I'm still processing that, and to know that a series is coming makes me really, really happy.
I think they're trying to fill in the plot holes, and they want to show where he's been, if he's been on Tatooine. I love the idea of that he had some kind of amnesia. He was rescued by the Tusken Raiders, and then he didn't really know who he was. He like slowly learned who he was over time. Some other shows have done that storyline, but not anything as prominent as Star Wars. So I think Star Wars could get away with it. The show Hell on Wheels did it, and like a character got in a traumatic accident and he forgot who he was, and he was raised by Native Americans. He thought he was like a Native American warrior. And so I think that would be really cool to see.
It's very Western.
To have Boba Fett think he was a Tusken Raider, and explains how good he is with a Tusken rifle and a gaffy stick and stuff like that. So
well, and I said that when we first saw him, I truly thought that he had adopted the Tusken Raider ways and almost just left his life and kind of pursued a new one, because when you have an experience like that where you nearly escape death, you change as a human. But it doesn't feel like he necessarily changed too much. Except what I thought was interesting is, going back to this episode, seeing Boba Fett fight stormtroopers.
Yeah.
Like, what
They're not his
happened?
brothers.
Yeah. But in a way, like, you see him in Empire Strikes Back, and he's a bounty hunter. He'll just go to the highest bidder. But knowing that he's more of a villain there, I guess that's the perspective we've seen him, right? But he's really not. He's just, like he says, a simple man trying to make his way for the galaxy, or for the universe.
And to see that honor that he has throughout the episode, like at the end when he says, "We promised you something, and now I'm going to," which, I like characters that are ambiguous like that, are honorable, and they'll be honorable to who they said they're going to be. Like he said he would do a job for the Empire. He does the job for the Empire. And I think that's, as we talked about in the last couple of weeks with the Empire Strikes Back book, reevaluating Boba as a character through those short stories, I think helped grow him more. And it's good to see a character like that is such a fan favorite get some more growth, just to see where he's been and how he's changed. So
yeah, and I would say that he kind of was a dirty player, the way you talked about him in the book, where he just pushes an Imperial officer out to his death. That's a bit dirty to me, but he seems more respectable and honorable the way he treats Mando in this episode, and probably in future episodes, which I can appreciate. I never thought we'd see Boba as the hero, is what I'm also thinking. He's just a kid with a vendetta in the Clone Wars, and now seeing him in this episode, a changed man in a way, is really cool. I can appreciate it on a different level, being such a hardcore fan.
Now Mando is forced to ride with him and Fennec and see where they go on Slave One, and wow,
that's insane.
And we'll talk about theories. I have a theory here at the end about this whole thing. So
interesting. I'm looking forward to it. What did you think about Baby Yoda Avatar state?
Oh, that was so cool. Okay, so I had some serious vibes of Guardians of the Galaxy in this movie. And
you called it a movie. You called it a movie.
Oh, did I?
No, I love that though, because that's what it feels like.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, in Guardians of the Galaxy, in the beginning of the movie, Star-Lord goes into the temple and he is trying to find the purple Infinity Stone.
Yeah.
And it's in that thing, and he you can't get through it, and it's like, that's why I thought, I was like, wow, but he has to use the magnet thing to pull Grogu out of that. But I love that you call it the Avatar state. That's probably a lot more Jedi.
No, I like that one. It's still something that forces you back, I suppose, something that a human can't necessarily interfere with. What I was thinking was, while I was watching it, I was wondering, it is called the tragedy. Could Mando hurt Baby Yoda by doing that? I thought something bad was going to happen, where Baby Yoda actually gets hurt because Mando pulls him out of there, interfering with something that he shouldn't, and then Baby Yoda can no longer use the Force. I can see that as a tragedy.
Oh, I never thought of that. Yeah, that's crazy.
I was trying to kind of piece together my imagination with figuring out the episode title and how it would fit in without the Empire getting Grogu, which I didn't want to happen, but I knew it was. I was just trying to think of other scenarios why. Do you think that nobody could interfere with that? Or I also thought to myself, what if the Jedi needs to come along to be able to pull him out of that?
Oh, wow. I thought that what was going to happen is every time he came up, he's like, hey, kid. I thought he was going to say Grogu, and that's what would get him out of it. And I was like, that would have been such a cool way for him to, he never said his name. And I thought that would have been what missed opportunities. But
I agree. Okay. I agree with that. Wow. Oh, it's so much better.
Yeah. I also wondered, when we were watching it was like, why did he drop the jetpack and then not pick it back up? And then why didn't he put it back on when he saw the Dark Troopers coming in? Like, you can see they have jet legs. They have repulsors on their legs. So why don't you pick up your jetpack? I understand, it's like a parenting thing, and I don't understand that as not having offspring. But,
Moreover, why did Boba tell him to take his jetpack off?
I think it was because he didn't want him to either go attack Fennec. Like, he saw that as more
the
of a
unknown
weapon than any of. Yeah, like where he could go with the jetpack,
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And the whole time I was screaming at my TV, put on your jetpack. Go get your jetpack. Even he has a remote control of the jetpack. Remote control it and have it come to you. We saw that in chapter 10, I think it was.
Yeah, with the little scavenger guy, yeah.
Yeah, why didn't he just remote control it to himself and then go get him? But I mean, story, we need more.
But how'd you feel about seeing the Dark Troopers in action?
Amazing. Just really cool. It was more of an abduction sequence, if anything, where they just go down, pull them back up. We didn't get to see them fight, really.
Yeah, I was hoping we would, in some way.
Yeah, I think that'll be a bigger reveal. I mean, they have to go get them back somehow, so I feel like that's going to tie into it.
Oh wait, I just realized what that place reminds me of. You know, in Fellowship of the Ring, the hilltop place where the ring wraiths come after Frodo. They're in the ruins on top of that hill, and it's like the shattered ruins are all around.
Yes.
That is exactly what this reminds me of. And I knew I was thinking of something because it's in surrounded by big boulders and stuff. That is what it was.
That has to be a callback. That has to be a callback. Because Dark Troopers and ring wraiths might be tied together in this. That's a very interesting thought. Conceptually, I know Dave Filoni is a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, so it might be tied together. That's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
I've been thinking about it for 5 hours now, trying to figure out what it was, and that's what it reminds me of.
It seems familiar.
Totally, and I think we'll definitely see the more action. But it was interesting that they just, like you said, flew down and then took him and flew away, like the scout troopers last season that just picked him up and flew away.
Yeah, it's more of a General Grievous fear of engagement almost. They'll always just run back. The Empire kind of acts disrespectfully and unhonorably. It's the difference between them and Boba at this point, right?
If anything, it would have been good to see them, at least if they are made of Beskar, like we've been theorizing, like for them to take a few shots and be able to say, oh crap, they're made of Beskar or something.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think we're going to go there. I don't see that happening. Like, Beskar is really hard to come by, but who knows? It's such a relevant material in this series, so maybe. But
yeah, and the Empire has lots of it from the Purge, so they're using it as payment.
Yeah, and that's fair. Do you think the child connected with a Jedi while this was all happening?
Yeah. I pictured it like Starkiller Base's laser. I just pictured like a blue one of those flying through the galaxy, trying to find like a blue light, like a blue beam shooting into the sky and just like going to all these different planets trying to find force sensitive beings.
That's a good way to put it. I like that.
Got like pinballing around all these different planets. Like eventually he found Opal Rancisis, so it's gonna be fine. He's gonna come save him from Moff Gideon.
Sam, I'm so tired of putting Opal Rancisis in the episodes. I always have to find a new image of him. Like,
I have plenty of them if you want some stills from the Clone Wars. That's when he looks his best, is in Clone Wars.
There's no real good images of him online like that.
Yeah, I know. I had to pause it on my TV and take pictures of it. Him walking with Obi-Wan and Ayla Secura.
I really think it'll be Luke Skywalker still. But here's the thing. I'm not sold on the fact that he actually found a Jedi. Here's my thought. We're getting into theory territory, I suppose. Thought, what if he chose Mando instead of the Jedi? Like, he can still use the Force, but instead of choosing the path of the light side or the dark side, Mando is the one that has to train him in some way or another. Not necessarily like in the ways of the Jedi. It's interesting that in the last episode with Ahsoka, Mando's like, I can't train you, kid. I don't have the abilities. And then he says the same thing in this episode at the beginning, where he's like, I'm so happy that you're going to get trained. Like, I'm going to take you to somebody who can. I can't do it. It feels like they're on that path of him staying with Mando. I don't see them taking the child out of the picture unless it's the very end of the series.
Yeah.
So my thought is, I don't think he necessarily connected with a Jedi or chose the light side or the dark side in that sense. I think Mando is the one that has to, in a way, train him and raise him.
Well, and that does go along with, like in Rebels, the episode where they're looking for Luminara, and Kanan wants to just drop Ezra off with a Jedi Master who he thinks is, going to train Ezra. Yeah. I think that goes along in the lines with that of like Kanan doesn't feel good enough that he's not good enough to train Ezra, and instead he's going to drop him off with Luminara and she's going to train him. That could be the way they're going to go with this, where they found Ahsoka, or they say they find Luke or whatever, and they realize like maybe it is best if he sticks around with Din and and Boba and the crew. I don't know.
Can you picture if it is Luke Skywalker and he sees Boba and he's like, what? Yeah, we're just going to leave the child with him. We're just going to leave the child with Boba.
That does raise some questions, which would be interesting.
Like, what if we got Luke Skywalker back talking to Boba Fett? That would be insane.
I was just thinking about like 60-year-old Quinlan Vos hanging out with all of them.
He would fit right in, I feel like. I feel like they could get some spotchka, get a glass of spotchka, and they could all hang out at the bar together.
I'm surprised they didn't find him on Tatooine. Like, he's still there in Mos Espa just watching pod races and hanging out with Boba.
I just picture Quinlan Vos drunk at a bar with his arm around Sebulba, speaking Latifs, watching pod races.
That's where he was in episode 1,
I just Star Wars humor.
Exactly.
People have no idea what we're talking about. I hope
it's okay. Yeah. You do a great job of editing and putting pictures in, and some people somewhat under. My girlfriend's family has been watching our podcast, and they've been like, we got like 10 or 15 minutes into it, and we have no idea what's going on. But we love that you guys are so passionate.
Passion matters. Say it with enthusiasm, and people will care, right? I loved the fight sequences. Going back to that, the directing was amazing. It was all well done perfectly. It was a bit grittier, I will admit. You have Boba smacking some stormtroopers around with the gaffy stick, and you actually see the wreckage, the chunks flying off. We first saw that in Rogue One, where Chirrut does it with the stormtroopers, and you barely can make out the little pieces of armor chinking off. We saw it in the Mandalorian. Does it. Yeah, we saw it in the Mandalorian a couple times, where Din does it. I think the Chapter 3 episode where he goes and rescues Baby Yoda.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, he does. Yeah,
and the armor, like you said, but just to actually see the wreckage, because you always wonder, like, what does a stormtrooper look like after that? Do they make it the whole way through, like, to skin? But it was cool to actually see that, I suppose. A bit of a darker shot, but, this is a grittier, darker series than most of Star Wars, and I think that's why it resonates with a lot of people who are wanting something of this level before.
I agree.
The boulder sequence was very well done.
That was such a out of the box idea. I feel like
that's a bit Indiana Jones for me.
I bet Indiana Jones was just he had an E-web cannon to fire at that boulder with.
The entire time when they're setting up the E-web, I just picture Moff Gideon. This is an E-web blaster. Every single time I see that
over the intercom on his Star Destroyer, like just talking down.
Every time I see an E-web, I think of him.
Built the E-web, and it came with the HE-AT, and I built it, and I was like, this is an E-web cannon. And
my troops are assembling right now. Well, did you think that he was there with them immediately?
No. If the Dark Troopers show up, then I know Moff Gideon's here. That transport design is new, isn't it?
That's Force Awakens material. Yeah.
Yeah. But it isn't exactly the First Order transports, is it?
No, it's not exactly, but it's very, very similar. That's the Empire version, not the First Order version. I just don't think we've seen it before. Much like a troop transport, even though we've never seen it in the films, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist during that time period. I honestly wondered to myself, the episode's called The Tragedy, so it kind of gives it away. But, like, what if it's actually not the Empire? It did look very Imperial, but what if it's a Jedi come to get Grogu? That was on first watch what my thought was. And then they come out and I'm like, yeah, it's the Empire, of course. I'm always waiting for a surprise anymore, it feels like.
Like the little kid in Mystery of a Thousand Moons with the battle droids that he has. Just like this Jedi who has a bunch of stormtroopers. He's like, no, don't kill all my stormtroopers. Like, I'm just here for the kid.
He's actually like controlling them.
It's actually that kid. He became a Jedi.
Jabo Hood.
I was trying to remember his name. I was like, I knew it wasn't Wilro Hood. I was like, I know it's something Hood.
Are they related? Oh. The Hoods. I don't think they come from the same family. It's just a thought.
I want a shirt that says "Welcome to the Hood" with Jabo Hood and Wilro Hood on it, like back to back, like arms crossed, like.
I want that Redbubble shirt. That is a Redbubble shirt waiting to happen. I think
And
I'm
it's
gonna
in
do
such
it.
obscurity, and like the Camtono is between them.
You
Oh
know what?
yeah.
I don't think you would have copyright issues with that at all. I don't think anybody would know. No one would have any clue. I think I'm gonna do it. I think I could do it.
Oh, I think you
Genuinely.
could. Yeah. I really appreciated him recovering the knob and the spear out of the wreckage of the Razor Crest, even though it was super distraught. Like that was probably the biggest moment. I looked over and Katie's mouth was just hanging open. Like they really just destroyed the Razor Crest. Like I couldn't believe like all this marketing, all this stuff. It's probably why the HasLab thing.
Well, this really made me sad. Literally, like having the Lego set and then watching it just get blown up like that. It's like drop testing a Lego set. It's hard to watch. I really was disappointed because genuinely, I really do like this model.
Oh, me too. I was gonna do so many mods to that set and stuff, and now I'm like, I don't really have the like. If it's not in the show, like I was gonna wait between the seasons to like do some work on mine and like mod it up and stuff, and I kind of lost all ambition for that when I saw it blow up, and I was like, I'm happy with the model now. You can see it behind me, but it's fine. But my theory is that he's gonna travel around with Boba, and somehow Boba's going to die, and he's gonna inherit the Slave One. Is my theory that like Boba seems like the mentor type right now. He's going to help do what he can and all this stuff. But I think in the end, he's going to end up sacrificing himself or dying in some way. And Mendo's going to inherit. He's like without a ship right now.
Well, I mean, that's what I was wondering too. Usually when you get a character coming back like this, we saw it with Darth Maul. The people that bring the character back are the ones that end up killing them off. If you notice that. I like that idea because I think that's fair.
He has plenty of story left, and I'm not saying kill him off in the season finale, but I'm saying, you know, at some point he's hanging around with them like Rex hangs out with the rebels, let's say. He just is there and he's a good mentor, and then somehow he dies.
It makes you think because you know how many times I said as a kid, like, oh, Darth Maul dies by Obi-Wan on Naboo. Like, oh, Boba Fett dies in the Sarlacc pit. Even though that was never like truly solid in my heart of hearts because I always felt like that's a return just waiting to happen. But knowing that Boba Fett is going to die eventually also kind of makes you wonder, like, how does that end up happening? But
like Ahsoka, same way.
Yeah, well, Ahsoka's never gonna die.
It's gonna be episode 15, and she like of like the main movies, and they'll be like 3 generations away, and they're like, we're looking for a Jedi Master, and Ahsoka like same age, looks like same length montrals, like just shows up. And
we don't know the average age of a Togruta anyways in Star Wars, so she could live like a Wookiee. What I'm saying is, it's so fun to have unknown Star Wars material, right? It's so fun to not know what's going to happen next, and I love that. It makes me so happy that it makes me feel like a kid again with Clone Wars because Ahsoka and Rex we know weren't around, at least at that point during the time of the original trilogy. We didn't know how that all fit together. And as a kid, I'm sitting there saying, well, they have to die at some point. They have to die. And it's terrible to say that, like, as a kid waiting for your favorite characters to end up dying in your favorite show. But I kind of feel the same way about this, not necessarily with Mando or Grogu, but with characters like Boba Fett, like Grief Karga, like Cara Dune, that can die. To have a meaningful death is important. They don't necessarily have to, but they could at any point. It was the same way I watched Rebels.
Yeah.
We don't have Ezra and Kanan and Hera and all these people around. We don't know for certain they make it out of this alive.
Yeah. And then in the last season, it was nice. They showed the Ghost and Hera on Endor, you know, and those in Galaxy of Heroes. Like, so we knew that like Chopper and all that, but it was like still like Kanan and Ezra, like that we knew some air of mystery, not knowing if any of the other characters survived, which was fair. Which was cool because, you know, Hera was the voice of the rebellion in the group and all that stuff. So,
but it makes me so excited to see what happens next. And I really think your theory is likely, very, very likely, or he ends up just getting a new ship. But
yeah, he just gets a quad jumper or something, you know, and his quad jumper is the one that gets destroyed on Jakku.
No, I picture like the alternate perspective from a certain point of view of Force Awakens. It's actually Mando's ship, and
yeah, he's out there just like drinking with Unkar Plutt, and then he looks out, and Unkar runs out. No, that's my ship, and Din's like, that's my quad jumper.
He just drops his drink.
But yeah, how'd you feel about going back to Navarro? I thought that was a really cool
epilogue.
End of it. I love the visual of Slave One sitting outside the city. That looked really cool. And then but then like him talking to Kara and her being an official marshal now.
So it was a badge. That's what it was. We were wondering what the New Republic pilot gives her, which is a sheriff's badge.
Yeah.
How Western is that? So she has to follow the rules now.
Yeah, and it sounds like next week we're going to be breaking Bill Burr out of prison. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Well, first, before we even get to that, before we get into too deep of the theories, how did you feel about Jango Fett being a foundling and Boba Fett being basically inducted into the Mandalorians?
Works for me.
Almec was wrong in Clone Wars when he says that they are not Mandalorians. Jango Fett was just a bounty hunter, right? But
and maybe he didn't know, like with Death Watch was, Almec wasn't in Death Watch at that point. Death Watch had been working undercover for years. I think
Almec was in Death Watch the whole time, if you ask me.
I mean, I could see that, but I think he was an opportunist who would have gone wherever the wind swayed.
That's fair.
But going to be breaking Bill Burr out. Did Kara leave with them, or is she staying on Navarro?
No, she's staying on Navarro. That to me was a spoiler, though, when I watched this episode, I'm going to be honest, because the image that you click on is Cara Dune and Mando, and I'm like, how will we end up back there?
Well, I thought it was a great tease, because then I was like, oh, okay, well, Kara's he's going to have to go to Navarro for some reason. And then that by the time I got to that part in the episode, I completely forgot that she was going to be in the episode. Like, I saw the image.
There's so much that happens that you forget what you even saw in a recap or in the image that you click on the thumbnail. Why do you think they're going after Mayfeld in prison? Why does he matter to this?
Well, he's a former Imperial sharpshooter, so I think that he carries that like mind of the Imperial ways of doing things. I took that as like they need him to get into this ship. I don't know if he knows exactly where Moff Gideon is, but I think he probably knows like how to get in. Kind of like I've been talking about earlier with Rex, like in Rebels, like Rex knew the Imperial codes and the stuff like that to get into the ship.
Yes.
Yeah.
That makes
standard procedure.
That makes more sense. And I'm glad to see that plot point from last season matter now. We knew they were going to bring them back somehow, but he's also going to have the rest of that motley crew with him too.
He could not. They could have gotten separated. I don't know. That's what I also wondered, if they're going to be back or if they got sent off to different prison camps, because it sounds like he's on a planet now, like at a prison camp.
And I really like Bill Burr, so I'm honestly glad to see him back. I like his comedy, to be honest. He's an interesting individual, always complaining about his wife.
I don't know how I feel about like Sheenan or whatever her name's coming back, but I would like to see Clancy Brown back. I just love some Clancy Brown.
Yeah, and you gotta love him as Mr. Krabs and Savage Opress, my man Clancy Brown.
I'm watching The Crown right now, and he was just in an episode of The Crown, and I was playing President Lyndon Baines Johnson. I was like, Clancy Brown looks nothing like him, but that big booming voice, it's just like that. That's
you know who he is.
That's Ryder Azadi right there.
He's so many characters. I love it.
Yeah.
Such a talented performance actor.
Where do you think the Star Destroyer is heading? Where do you think Moff Gideon is going?
Unknown regions. Serious. That's where the Empire's hiding out. Where else do you think they're going?
I don't think he got invited to that party. I don't think he was. I don't think he's in that whole group.
I don't know. He could be going anywhere. He could have his own remnant of the Empire. Who knows at this point? They're so divided. If you're right, if this doesn't have anything to do with the grand scheme of what the Empire is up to at this point, this could be just his little corner of the galaxy. It was funny having Boba Fett say the Empire's back. They're back. The Empire's back.
Oh, yeah.
It just felt a little off to me. I don't know.
That scene did feel a little off because, like, yeah, it's Mando's viewfinder that they show, and he looks up, and when the Razor Crest gets destroyed, it pans up to the Star Destroyer, like in Mando's view. So it's like, well, they already established that the Star Destroyer is up here, so why do they need to then have Boba fly up to it? But hey, it was Slave One flying around chasing Dark Troopers. So
I think that was the point. I think that's why they did it, just to have that as something in the story of this episode. Like, I never thought those words would come out of your mouth. Yeah, Boba
But yeah,
Fett
so
flying in Slave One after Return of the Jedi, just after
chasing
Dark
a baby
Troopers.
Yoda being carried by Dark Troopers. No, I was gonna say. So you think that? Do you think next week we're gonna see them break Bill Burr out of prison? You think that's where we're? I
Yeah.
assume that's.
Yeah, and then the final episode will be them going to wherever the Empire is and trying to chase them down. I think we're gonna get a New Republic episode where he's gotta fight off those types of either droids again, if it's the same type of prison ship, which he knows how to get into, I suppose, now that he's already done it
Well,
once.
yeah, I personally think it's a prison camp, like a work camp where Bill Burr is like serving time at. What Kara said made it sound like, but I'll have to watch it again and pay more attention to it.
Very interesting. It is really difficult to go into these episodes with any more predictions just because we haven't seen them in a trailer. And that's so refreshing to me. I don't know how you feel, but literally not knowing anything visually from these last two episodes have been so enjoyable.
It's nerve-wracking, but it's also very enjoyable. Like, I have been waking up on Thursday mornings at 3 a.m. in a nervous sweat because I know that the episode drops, and I don't even try to. Like, it's
the Disney chips are in your brain. You wake up to new content when your signal goes off.
When Bob Iger says execute order 66, it's going to be
execute order content. I'm really excited. I just feel like this season is going to end on some sort of cliffhanger or not. What if they eradicate Moff Gideon at the end of the season? Then where do we go? But
he's in for season 3 at least for sure.
So here's my prediction. You ready?
Go ahead.
It's not really a prediction. It's more of an observation, but it's more of a what if scenario. I don't think it's going to happen, but what if, I know somebody probably has already said this before. I haven't heard it because literally I haven't been online all day. What if Grogu chose the dark side? Because he's doing some dark stuff to those troopers, Sam.
In that scene, I thought that maybe Moff Gideon had been a Jedi in some way and gotten Grogu out of the temple at a different time. And I was like, they just seem to have such a connection. That's why I was like,
well, he was actually, they didn't even need the tracker because Moff Gideon actually connected with Baby Yoda at that moment, and he was the Sith that was drawn to the child.
He could be an Inquisitor, like you said before. He has like that kind of armor, like an Inquisitor. So he could be an Inquisitor. I don't know.
But, I don't see that happening. I really don't. He was an ISB officer. They've already established that.
Yeah.
But I think it's very interesting that once again Grogu is experiencing very dark circumstances. It makes me wonder why he's using those powers.
My final note about it will be I would have loved to have been one of those Stormtrooper actors being told to be thrown around by this puppet, and you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Well, he was doing force chokes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and but like they just looked like those things outside of a used car lot. Like they're just like flapping all around, and they're like,
you buy it? Being told, I bought it.
Oh yeah, I did too. But like in my first viewing for sure, and the second one, I just started laughing at a certain point because I was like, "Oh man, I just love to have been one of those actors." Like,
that's fair, especially looking at it from a behind the scenes perspective is interesting.
Yeah.
And then Moff Gideon ignites the Darksaber right in front of him.
I didn't see it the first time. The second time, Grogu pulls it towards him a little bit, if you can tell, but it's not strong enough to like take it. That's why Moff Gideon pulls it back and puts it back in his belt.
He should have pushed it. Why didn't he push it instead? And then Moff Gideon was have sliced himself open. I'm excited.
It's gonna be a good last two episodes.
The series is amazing. The series
it sure is
has been beyond all expectations in my mind. And someone reported that this last arc is going to be our opening to how this connects with other things in Star Wars far beyond from what we've already seen. And I'm really interested in what that means. I forget who reported it. I saw a YouTube video. It was an article from somewhere that they were reading the article. It's interesting to see whether that was about Boba Fett or something else. I'm curious to see what happens next. and it's far different from where we started. That's all I'm going to say with season 1, chapter 1. It's been a very enjoyable ride, and I can't wait to see where we go from here.
And I'm glad that we're on this journey together with you and all the folks watching this. Like I've said, the last 2 weeks, it's been enjoyable to kind of catch the live chat and see what everyone's doing. I was laughing about, we were talking about who rescued Grogu from the Jedi Temple last week in last week's video. I just kept saying, I was like, yeah, it's Jocasta Nu. She's the one who's grandmotherly, like picking up baby Grogu and saving him, because she survived Order 66. Like, she was killed in the Darth Vader comic, so she could have totally picked him up in all of her Jedi relics and like rushed out the door. Lizzie from the Rogue Rebels did a great drawing of Quinlan Voss grabbing Grogu like a football and diving out the window. So I encourage you to check that image out too, because it's quite humorous.
Very good artwork. Very good. Well done, Lizzie.
Anything else for the good of the order, bud?
No, I think we pretty much covered all of it.
Yeah, we definitely went through with a fine-tooth comb, I think.
Yeah, there's just so much next, and I'm sure that next week we'll be having just as in-depth of conversation. So be sure to subscribe and like this video if you do enjoy our conversation. Give us some feedback. What have you thought so far of our podcast? And leave a comment down below, and we'll try to get to your questions either in the live chat when this episode premieres or afterwards at some point whenever you're watching this in the future. Hope you're enjoying the series as much as we are.
And if anything we can do to make the podcast better, we'd love feedback.
Definitely, you can follow us on social media as well. I am at Matt Mellish everywhere, including TikTok, Instagram, and of course YouTube, where you are probably watching this episode. Sam, where can the folks find you?
You can find me on Instagram at SG Sketches and stuff. There I've just been posting stuff lately, a lot of Star Wars stuff. I do a lot of different things. Yeah, check it out. I love interacting with people out there and all kinds of different things. So I hope to see you around.
Well, folks, take care. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you in the next show. May the Force be with you always.
Bye.